Can Keith Thurman shock Unbeaten Errol Spence Jr. and the world? Alright, y'all, it's your boy Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. So, news came out yesterday surrounding the three-time welterweight champion Errol "The Truth" Spence Jr. And he basically put out a tweet stating that he didn't know who he was going to be fighting next, and he has to basically think about it to make his decision. Now, I know that's contrary to what we've been hearing, because what we've been hearing is that Errol Spence has already petitioned for the Keith Thurman fight. So for him to say he doesn't know who he's fighting next kind of leaves you with a question mark, like, hey, I thought you were going ahead with the Keith Thurman fight. But at the end of the day, I think that fight will end up happening. I don't think there are any other fights out there for Errol Spence to make at the moment besides the Keith Thurman fight, other than perhaps waiting for a Manny Pacquiao fight and for him to decide if he's going to come back or not. In all actuality, I think that we are going to get Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman sometime in February. He left us with a cliffhanger with the tweet, but I mean, what else can you do? You just got to kind of ride with what you feel like is actually going to happen. And what I feel like is actually going to happen is the Thurman fight is going to play out. Spence, I don't think, wants to be stripped. I do think he wants out of the 147-pound division, but not the way that they're pushing him out of the 147-pound division. Terence Crawford, I think, used a strategic tactic to try to trap Errol Spence into some tough fights, hoping that he would get beat up a little bit and perhaps damaged a little bit. And when he faces Errol Spence, it won't be the same Errol Spence. But with all that being said, how does Keith Thurman stack up against Errol "The Truth" Spence Jr.? Well, you got to look at it from the reality of the situation. And the reality is Keith Thurman has been extremely inactive for the past 3 years in the sport of boxing. And anybody with a brain could tell you that you have to be active as a boxer. You know, just to hop back in with championship level competition is extremely difficult and extremely dangerous. Now, for a guy like Thurman, who I believe is on his last leg of boxing, this is going to be most likely his cash out fight. I think you're going to see Errol Spence go ahead and beat the bejesus out of Keith Thurman for ducking him when he was champion and basically shading him, pushing him to the side and never giving him a chance. And I think you're going to see Errol Spence beat 3 years worth of nonsense out of Keith Thurman. You decided to go lay low for 3 years after you got destroyed by Manny Pacquiao. And I think the Pacquiao fight, that is the blueprint to how you beat Keith Thurman. You got to be willing to stand in front of him. You have to be willing to put that power on his chin. And you need to do it with a little bit of speed. Now, we all know Errol Spence is not a speed fighter. He's a combination power puncher, breakdown fighter, stand in front of you, beat you up with that jab. That is extremely different from what Manny Pacquiao does, but the one thing I will say about Errol Spence Jr., he has the best jab in the business, and there was nothing that Keith Thurman did when he faced Mario Barrios that made me feel like he's hit a new level in his career, or taking 3 years out of the sport somehow helped him become a better boxer. Absolutely nothing I saw in that fight gives me hope that Keith Thurman survives past the 7th round with Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence is definitely going to break him down physically in the first 4 to 5 rounds, and by the 7th, 8th round, you're going to see a slower, more methodical version of Thurman, and Spence is just going to pick him apart with the jab. The jab, I think, will carry Spence through that fight. I think Thurman will walk into the jab a lot during that fight. I think Thurman will get set up later in the rounds and potentially floored. You're going to see Errol Spence do some things you probably never seen Errol Spence do in a boxing ring before. He might even notch up the speed a little bit. We haven't seen Errol Spence turn the speed on really ever. But I do think that that's something that's going to need to happen for him to beat Terence Crawford, because the one Achilles heel I think Errol Spence does have is the fact that if you can out-quick him and land punches, then you can beat him. But if you're willing to just stand in front of him and let him pump that jab out there like we saw Ugas try to do, he's going to pick you apart for 12 rounds and basically break all the bones in your body that he can hit. Because he's a very physical guy. He knows where to throw a punch, and he knows where to throw a punch to hurt you. So for Keith Thurman to actually come out of this and come out of it champion, you're going to have to see a bully style fight. I think you're going to have to see him try to wrap Errol Spence up, wrap his arms up for the first 2 or 3 rounds, try to get his arms tired, punch him in the arms, perhaps even use some Jeff Horn tactics that we saw Horn use versus Manny Pacquiao. You know, headbutt him, elbow him when he can, you bully him when the referee's not looking. You know, you're going to probably see some elbows to the ribs. There's going to be a lot of physicality in this fight, and I think that's the only way that Thurman wins. Now, here's the thing about being out of the ring for so long. Your body's no longer used to taking punches. So, actually, I think it might be easier for Errol Spence to get Thurman out of there because his body isn't used to taking heavy punches. And basically what we saw Errol Spence Jr. do to Ordanius Ugas is break him down physically. Now, with Keith Thurman not being used to taking punches to the body, to the face for the past 3 years, you're going to see him bruise up really easily. And I'm not talking like gym punches. I'm talking about somebody in there trying to knock your head off. Gym punches and fight punches are 2 totally different things. So I think we're going to see Errol Spence Jr. really turn it on, really ratchet it up. I think you potentially might see Keith Thurman get knocked out. If nothing else, you're going to see him get bruised up really, really badly because he hasn't been used to taking all that damage for the past 3 years. And he really didn't get hit at all or even that much in the Mario Barrios fight. So y'all let me know what y'all think about that down in the comment section below. Does Keith Thurman have a chance of beating Errol Spence Jr.? Will he beat Errol Spence Jr.? Will he shock Spence and shock the world by becoming the 3-time champion, by defeating the 3-time champion Errol Spence Jr. and coming out of that with all those titles? Y'all hit that like button for me, share, subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. More than likely to get a response on the tube, so holler at me over there. And we are live.
Let's go, yo, it's sorta like NASCAR. How these niggas take wheels off of fast cars, we not right. About to shine like dandruff and neon lights. Know you feel the shit that we on, right? I got your bitch and she's on pipe, taking pictures of herself. And if you're really slanging, you're snitching on yourself, jerk. So look at it that way. Why I'm looking at your rat from the back way. Then I'm looking for a black in the ashtray. But if that black ain't freak, you can keep it thinking rap ain't heat. You was sleeping, I attack that beat. I'm the reason. Something hit your dome, now you're sleeping. Worse than the chrome when you're beefing. Something get thrown, now you're leaking. Game coming out when I'm speaking. Tell you dang, you can bone for the evening. Bet I leave alone by the weekend. Now let's go. Let's go. My Nashville niggas. Let's go. My Naptown niggas. Let's go. Cincinnati. Let's go. Nigga, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Nigga, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Time to wind it down. Either you rewind it now. I want big stacks, way up to the sky from the ground. Don't want a chick in to time it down unless she's really talking about time it down, freak.